Hello, my name is Natalie Zannettou, and this video is created to answer some of the questions of my participants in the Mindful Parenting webinar that I'm leading right now. So the first question is within a context of shame. We talked about the detrimental effects of shaming our children. And a parent asked, so when my child is eating and making a big mess and then wiping the food on her clothes, what am I supposed to do? And she found herself constantly correcting her, finding her behavior annoying, and then the daughter ends up feeling, you don't yell at my sister, why are you always yelling at me? So then we start to have the inferiority complex. So the question the mom asked me is, how else can I deal with such a behavior versus shaming her? Now, we all automatically would shame our children when something like that happens. Now, it's not because we're bad parents or because we mean to shame them and make them feel less on themselves. It's just because we don't know how else to deal with it. We were raised in an environment and that shame is normal. And we may not realize, but we shame and have been shamed a lot. So we generally think of shame as a way of teaching. But the truth is that if you look at your personal life, when you're shamed, you're not learning. And if you do end up obeying so that you can stop the shaming, deep inside, what really needs healing and what you really need to learn, that you're not less and that you're perfect and complete the way you are, is not getting learned. And as I said many times, our job as parents is not to say what's wrong and right, is not to correct, is not to judge, but we're here to guide our children. And whatever behavior they are doing that is not beneficial or is not something that we would like them to carry on in life, is not because there's anything wrong with them. And it's not for us to judge. It's for us to guide them on how to do what they are trying to do in a better way. So in this situation, when the daughter is just really messy and clumsy, one could say, and she ends up eating and throwing food away or making a mess when she's eating and then wiping on herself, our job is not to judge that behavior, but to guide them on how to deal with it differently. Because if you look, when you're being shamed and when we're shaming our children, this doesn't stop the behavior, which is why it happens again and again and again. Because a child starts to create this belief of, I'm not loved, my mom doesn't love me, my dad doesn't love me, I'm not worthy of love. And in the I'm not worthy of love, as human beings, we tend to sort of collect evidence about anything that we believe is right. We live on belief. So if my belief is that I'm lesser than and I'm not worthy of love, then I'll continue to do behaviors that prove me correct, that indeed I'm not worthy of love. So when we're shaming our children, we're actually teaching them to repeat that behavior. Because on one hand, they desperately want to be accepted and loved. So they want to be unconditionally loved. So they want you to love them even though they are the way that they are. Because that's the only love there is, when we love a person the way they are and the way they're not. And on the other hand, right, somewhere deeper inside, they have this belief that we don't love them. So then they do it, desperately hoping that we'll prove them wrong, but we keep proving them right by shaming them again. So how you would deal with this behavior is that you would guide your child. And you can guide your child not by reprimanding them, you can guide your child by rewarding them and showing them a different way of being. Now, this is not a severe enough behavior to put consequences, but if it was, if let's say they were hitting other children, you could put consequences. consequences are different from punishment. It's something that you agree with the child. So let's say you agree that that this behavior is not something you want to do, and you ask them how they feel, and they would say, that doesn't feel good. And you say, okay, well, how about we teach ourselves to stop doing that? And then they would generally agree, especially if you have this conversation when they're feeling bad about what they did, naturally. And then you create an agreement that if they do this again, there's going to be a consequence. And then you implement the consequence with a lot of love, without any distance being present, and with an understanding that we're doing this inside of teaching ourselves to behave in a different way. Now, this case is not something that harms anybody else. I get that it might be annoying, but it's still not a behavior that deserves consequence. But we could use reward system. You could show them first, okay, well, why do you think that we shouldn't wipe ourselves on our clothes? And they could say, because my clothes then will be dirty and then I need to change. And you can say yes, and if we're going home and if we're home and you can change easily, then it's not a big problem. But if we're somewhere outside, then you'd be walking around with dirty clothes and you would feel dirty. And you can ask them, do you like walking around dirty? And then if they say yes, I would really just drop it. You can say, okay, well, when you want to learn to eat in a manner that stops you from making a mess, and when you want to when you grow up and you care that you want to be clean and you don't want to be messy, and you want to be able to eat without making a big mess, then you can ask me and I can show you how. Now, if they agree that they want to learn how to eat without making a big mess and that they would rather be clean, then you can say, okay, well, mommy will show you how you can eat and what you can be mindful of and careful of so that you cannot make so much of a mess, And it could be as simple as, I don't know what they're eating with their hands, or if they're eating while talking, or if they're eating while looking at elsewhere, right? You can just observe those behaviors and one by one teach them how to do it differently if they're willing to cooperate. And then you can create a really nice drawing, and then whenever put like a balloon in it or something like a heart in it, and whenever they're able to learn to eat without making a mess, you can put a little sticker in. And then when they collect like 5 stickers, you can get them a little something. And then when they collect like 30 stickers, you can get them a bigger something. And it can be agreed on based on what it is that they like. And then it's a fun thing, right? And if you have another child, you could see what the other child needs to learn so that they can feel they have a reward system and they have a way of getting a little something, because that might end up being an issue, that the young one, because they're not doing something correctly, they're going to get a present if they try and they don't get anything. Or you can just have it be that, when the one child succeeds, they both get something. Or you can work on something else, maybe you want to work on them speaking more clearly, or whatever you want to work on, just for fun. Make this be a game, and then whenever they don't do it, they just don't get a sticker. But you should be very wary of, you shouldn't make them wrong when they're not achieving something. You should only celebrate it when they are learning what you're trying to teach them. But we should take it as that we're trying to teach them a new way of doing something, not correcting, not judging their behavior. They're not trained to eat in a clean manner yet, and it's our job to guide them on how to do that. It's not our job to tell them that they're wrong or bad or shame them when they're not doing that. And if you take this approach, you can teach them anything and they're open to it, because they feel that it's done with love. And, it no longer feeds their belief that they're unworthy of love or lesser than. And this is a healthy way of teaching your children and guiding them towards something that's useful for them. Now, if they don't want to collaborate in something like this, you should just rest assured that as they grow older, they will want to eat in a way that is not so messy, and they will stop wiping themselves on their clothes. Because as they grow older, they start to become conscious of other people's reaction towards them, and all this stops anyway. And it's way more important to have them have a positive self-view to feel that they're great and that they're worthy of love, versus having a child with a perfect clean t-shirt. So sometimes we do have to reevaluate our priorities, and I know it's automatic, and I know that nobody wants their kid to sort of be dirty, especially in public spaces, and to make a mess. But sometimes we have to weigh the options, and shaming them is definitely not gonna help them be cleaner, and it will destroy their self-view. Okay, thank you very much. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you soon.